Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Revolution Radio on Tuesday night. We took a week off, but we are back, and this is the Idavox report.
I'm feeling a little better, y'all. How y'all doing? It's Daryle with Brian and Christian here on the latest Idavox report that we hope will be a very inspiring episode. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting if everybody saw the commercial and what we're going to be talking about today. But we'll get to that in a minute. How y'all doing, Brian, Christian?
Doing okay. Doing great. Right. Looking forward to the end of the school year.
Oh, man. It's May.
It's May. Get my last lecture of the semester today. I've got an event that I'm co-chairing tomorrow, and graduation's the end of the week.
Wow.
Do you paint houses during the summer still? That's what teachers used to do when I went to school. They painted houses.
No, I only teach part-time, so I'll be working from my office all summer. I just won't be teaching.
Yeah. And okay. I will always be in a classroom. So
yeah, right. Love it.
So and what about you, Brian? What are you looking forward to, considering you have 5 boys in the school year?
I'm getting ready to acquire enough earth to spread them out on, and I'm pretty sure within a couple of weeks after I bought some land up here in Maine. And it's just a nice chunk. It's a nice chunk. And I'm pretty sure, knowing a couple of my boys, a few of them are going to find a place, dig a hole, and start living in a hole somewhere in the woods. And I'm good with that, actually. I'm very.
My niece graduates.
It's why I moved up here, so my children can live in a hole.
My niece
they're looking for it too.
Yeah.
She's college or high school.
On the way to. She wants to be a veterinarian. So, and she has her heart set on that. You know,
that's tough. Good luck to her.
Like she's on her way. She's been accepted into a number of different schools now, but she's going to go to Rutgers. And I would try to get her to be an intern in this place, but she's got a double major going. So I don't know if she's going to even have time. That's what she wants to do. Freshman. Yeah.
Ooh, what's her second major? So it's like animal science, biology.
I have to ask. I'm not really sure what her majors are, actually, but she's on her way. She's ready to rock and roll out there, and she has some other colleges that were out of state that she wanted to look at too, that accepted her as well. But Rutgers is free, so she's going to rock and roll, and probably one of those schools might be what she looks at when she goes to grad school. So I want everybody to bear with me. I am much better, very much so better than I was last week, but I'm actually wearing the same shirt that I was wearing last week. Even though y'all didn't see me all that much, but I hope y'all.
Man, I looked for a band T-shirt this week. I actually, for the first time, I paid attention, and you two guys got on golf polos now.
Yeah, I mean, I just took off my No Nazis T-shirt because I thought I had wore that last week, and then I just remembered. You know what? I had the media hit on that same day, right after I got off of here, and I was on the Black News Channel with Charles Blow, and we was talking about multiracial hate groups. They're still white. They still support white supremacy, and yet they're about promoting them, and they're of color. So yeah, it was something we all wanted to talk about, and you can actually find it on YouTube. I should have just provided everybody with the link here, but I'm gonna get that in a second because right now, because also on today I got another appearance, and this time it's going to be really interesting because we're going to be I'm going to be on a new channel called Fox Soul, the Fox Soul channel. You can find that on YouTube.
Fox Love and Soul.
So this is I have to. How much do you? Listen. Good for you on making the appearance. I'm always glad when you get out there and you have a chance to talk to the public. So, but let's make fun of Fox here for just a moment. What is when I hear Fox Soul? I see a bunch of white guys in suits trying poorly, very very lame attempts at dancing. So I'm sure that they've put together a better network than that, though. So in all seriousness, what is this? Is this a new thing? First off, that I'm just hearing about now because I'm just behind, or has this been around for a minute?
Yeah, it looks like it's a new thing. I think it might have started even probably this year. Yeah, it started on January 13th of last year.
Oh wow.
It has been particularly progressive, believe it or not. They have it's more entertainment than political, although there is political stuff. I'm obviously, if I'm going to be on it.
Yeah, man.
And a matter of fact, one of my favorite radio shows is The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God, and Angela Yee is on that show. Is on that radio show, and she has a program on Fox Soul. So that's what the kind of programs that they have.
Are there any names maybe that the general public might know, or are they?
Vivica Fox.
This is the first time. Honestly, when you mentioned it to me, they
got Vivica Fox.
Yeah, they have Vivica Fox. They have Ricky Smiley, who's something called Quarantine Cook-Off with Ricky Smiley. I did something for his show. I don't know if it aired though. For his radio show last year. But I don't know if it aired. I'm going to be on the Tammy Mack Late Show, which means, and it's live. So I am going to be like, oh man, I'm just going to be zoned out. So that comes on at 11 o'clock. You have to, you can find it on YouTube. Fox Soul channel is on YouTube, and it's also on Fox Soul TV. It doesn't look like it had too many ridiculous people on there, although I did watch a program about on this. The Tammy Mack Show recently had a program with Dr. Umar and Umar Johnson and Jesse Lee Peterson, and it was about what constitutes a sellout, and anybody that calls Donald Trump the Great White Hope, and that's Jesse Lee Peterson, by the way.
Yeah, and he's a sellout. He is a sellout, though.
Oh no.
Peterson he's the worst.
He is the worst. So bad that I don't think too many people, even among conservatives, take him seriously.
No,
I mean, he is still to this day the only one I have ever heard call Donald Trump the Great White Hope.
Yeah, and I mean, he called Mark Lamont Hill a jigaboo.
Yeah, so
and Mark Lamont Hill is you shill for the Republicans all the time. Like, you're calling me a jig. Yeah.
Nah, he's not somebody that you take seriously. Although, what's up, Warren? Although Warren? Do know that he's supposed to have his group's supposed to have a conference in Orlando, Florida, or somewhere in Florida. So I can't wait to see what this damn thing looks like. So if you guys can just check out Fox Soul on YouTube or on Fox Soul TV, and I'm going to be talking about cancel culture. I won't be wearing this shirt, but if you want to check out what I was talking about, again on the Black News Channel, by all means, just go over to their station on YouTube as well. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you the link to that video right now. I just provided it to some so you should be able to you'll see it in a minute. All righty. So before we begin, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I really want to get to the issue that we were saying we were going to be talking about, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that we do have some drama going on in the Middle East again. We a lot of, and that's to underscore a fact, this BS that's going on in between Israel and Lebanon. I got people in Israel that are hunkering down. I got folks here from Lebanon looking for family members. This is bullshit.
Palestine.
Yeah, I mean, I have to apologize. In Palestine, yeah, this is straight up bullshit. And I got to tell you, I mean, just straight up, Netanyahu needs to go. Netanyahu has become a dictator, and he is making things. He has escalated things to the point of no return. But Brian, I understand you're going to have a radio show.
Yeah, man. We're gonna get into it on NJR Live tomorrow night at 8 p.m. You know, I think many of us, the clip going around on social media is the clip of crowds cheering at what appeared to be a fire at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And for those of you that don't know about this mosque, it is, if not the most, it's up there in the top one or two most holy places to so many millions of Muslim people. I think it was actually a tree that was on fire. Never ever got for confirmation of what had been burned. There were some clips going around of grenades going off near this mosque. And, you know, it's you know, you talk about Netanyahu, but Israel has a problem as a society, I think. And I think I mentioned before that I heard Cory Booker say that hurt people hurt people. And I think the origins of Israel and the undeniable tragedies and things that have been inflicted upon the Jewish people have resulted in a state which is carrying out policy which needs to become unacceptable to the entire international community and really needs to put pressure. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow night, 8 p.m. I'm working on getting some guests. Thank you to my comrades who've been contacting me. I've been very, very busy during the days, but we're definitely going to get in depth on that tomorrow night. Thanks for the plug, man. Appreciate it.
Right, not a problem. And I also have to bear in mind that there's some folks outside the Israeli consulate in New York City, right as we speak. You know that it's huge when the news is showing aerial views, you know, so. And to Belisha Beacon's point, it's just like, you know what? I think one of the biggest threats to the Middle East is the West, honestly. It's been us exploiting what's been going on out there for over hundreds of years, for a couple hundred years now. And we are, I mean, to underscore fact, we're not helping. So, but like I said, there's a lot that I would like to say.
What do you mean? Spending billions and trillions of dollars bombing people doesn't make them your friends?
Oh, that's our healthcare money. I mean, this week it was Palestinians, Colombians. It's been Yemeni for a year. This is healthcare money, our free college education money, and it's being used to buy guns and buy bombs that are killing black people all over the world. This is what happens. Money. It either goes to tax breaks for the rich, subsidies for powerful corporations, or it goes to countries to kill poor people elsewhere. I mean,
we've tried everything. We've tried everything we know how to do to get peace over there. We tried bombing them. We tried shooting them. We tried stealing their land. We tried annexing them. We tried military rule. We tried executing state leaders, and we're all out of ideas. We don't know how to, these people, they don't want peace. They just don't want it.
They don't. And I basically say that whatever happens is going to happen. Folks in the Middle East are going to make their decisions without us. I mean, we are not helping, but they're going to make the decisions as to what the future is going to be without us. And sooner that we understand that, the better things might get out there. But I'm playing the optimist here, but I know better. Trust me on this. So, I mean, it's like I really am at a loss because I got so many people that I care about in all over that region, and I don't know. I mean, I say that we're it's a problem on the west. The problem is the West. I mean, when I see I mean, I don't even know how I'm helping even talking right now. And I mean, someone just talked about, I mean, Warren just said it seems if you critique anything Israel or Jewish people, you're labeled as anti-Semitic. I mean, that's not where I'm at. I just don't think that the West has been the biggest culprit in all of this, to be honest with you. The United States, UK, everybody has been basically exploiting. It's been an exploitive situation for the past 50, 60, 70, 80 years, you know. So, but
I would just say that the people on the ground in Israel, whether Palestinians or everyday Israelis, those are the people that are really being victimized. Israel has the highest income inequality in the Middle East, right? So, what do white elitist Israelis do? Rather than, it's the same thing as this country, same thing as right in this country. Rather than focus on taxing the rich, bringing in income inequality, social programs, easier to blame the other. In this case, Palestinians. So whether it's South Africa during apartheid, whether it's immigration in the United States today, or dealing with Palestinians in Israel, it is powerful elites using bigotry and demagoguery to demonize a minority. And that's what it is. I mean, I'm of the opinion that there's never going to be peace. Right? I mean, it's everyday Israelis are caught in the crossfire. It's the Palestinians caught in the crossfire, and it's you know, who's of the world that want to, like Trump, he wants to rile up his base, right? And as long as people are angry at the Palestinians, as long as the everyday Israeli citizens are angry at the Palestinians, they're not going to criticize Netanyahu, and they're not going to criticize inequality in their own state. This is right in politics.
I think one of the reasons why I have been so interested in doing the work that I do and doing the things that I do is because I have grown weary of those elements, those elitists out there using us as their pawns like this, using us as their racial pawns like this. And excuse me, and that has been going on ever since we hit the new world. You know, I think you can sit there and talk about how this has happened throughout history, throughout the time for thousands of years. It's become more and more apparent in the past 200, I should say. And we sit here and we talk about the racism, we talk about the bigotry, and when we never really have before. So that also means that we are the ones that are probably going to resolve this issue. Again, me being the optimist that I am. And it's funny because you watch what's going on with the Republican Party, for example. You're looking at a party whose most reliable base are white people. And white people, if you look at statistics from the Pew Research Center, are not voting as much as they did maybe 20 years ago. Pew Research Center says in 1996, they were clocking in at 89%. Now it's like 65 or something like that. So you see a party that is, and I'm not giving Democrats any leeway here. I'm just talking about the Republicans right now. You see the Republicans seeing their base shrinking, seeing their base being minimized, and us coming up. Everybody, people of color, blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and we weren't supposed to be here, you know, and they're freaking out. And the only way they know how to survive is via all the shenanigans that they have been pulling for the past 10 years. And no doubt,
forever.
The past couple of months. Forever is one thing, but forever, but it's nothing like it has been over the past 20 years, starting with George W. Bush, because it was around that time that they had noticed that we were coming up, and back in the things that worked, and things that worked maybe in the 80s even won't work now. There was more of an established order. There was more of a foundation. We have pretty much been tearing apart that foundation, that order, for the past just 20 years alone. And I always say, when Obama became president of the United States, and this is irrespective of what people might think of Obama, when he became president of the United States, that was them saying that we are here now. We are about to lose everything we have. Now we have a vice president who was part African, part Jamaican, I believe, and also part Indian, East Indian. So they now are really freaking out. They see that they are losing. I mean, when they lost Georgia last year, that was just like, okay, this is not our world anymore, and we got to figure out how we are going to reclaim it. So everything that's going on right now with the Republican Party is pretty much them in survival mode, and them in trying to preserve themselves, securing the existence of their people and a future for their children, not us. If you notice, I just recited words, but
yeah, I in looking, at history, and I think, I guess I wanted to ask you, you talked about Barack Obama, and his effect on the political landscape. And there's no doubt he had a huge historical impact for a lot of different reasons, right? But ultimately, in the end, he lost progressives. I don't know of many progressives nowadays that acknowledge Barack Obama as a progressive anymore. I think there are liberals out there that think he was progressive.
I don't think it matters.
Liberals think everybody that a Democrat is. But how do you, ultimately, this backlash? I don't. There is that kind of there's now. I hear that from Democrats as to making excuses why, for instance, Kamala Harris, had to remain as a vice president. We had to have a white man in front because look at the backlash, and we wound up with Trump. The argument is, last time we put a black guy in, we wound up with Trump. So let's not make that mistake again. And that's in other words, we're reinforcing racism now because we become afraid of the backlash. And that's why we should just abolish our government.
Well, here's the thing. Warren made the point about Obama was a symbolic victory, nothing more. And that really is what it was. In truth, what you're talking about, and the reason why I say I don't think it matters is because is the fact that, Obama and any politician that's in office right now is just nothing more than a barometer. They're nothing more than a barometer, because it gives people an idea of where we're at as a people. It doesn't matter whether or not you like Obama. Everything is symbolic. When you talk about Trump, even everything is symbolic. The WPs would have been doing what they've been doing regardless of whether or not Trump was ever got into office. The difference is Trump gave them the Hail Mary that they needed. And that is why they basically took advantage of the situation, and why we had to deal with white supremacists that were open when we haven't done that in a long, long time. And we still are. Biden being in office, I mean, that's another barometer. Basically, what we're doing right now, we're just cleaning up the mess that Trump and his cohorts left behind. But we can't really expect much because we're still dealing with the same old, same old. Today's politicians are not the politicians of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I would say of the 60s and 70s. When Reagan got into office, now you basically had a politician who they called the great communicator, and the reason why they did that, no, that's on point, because he was the first president to look at a camera and say, "You are my friend."
He's an actor.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
He was bullshitting us.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, first of all, I don't know who called him the great communicator. Like, it wasn't me calling him the great. You know what I mean? It's
no. I get it.
Calling him the great communicator.
Ronald Reagan. The people calling Reagan. That name is apt. That name is apt.
Yeah. But see, that was the important thing about it. That was the important thing about Reagan that everybody keeps missing. How did he get there? What
it was
did
an image.
Do?
He sold them an image, and he made white people feel safe with their racism. That's all it was. He was a haircut.
But see, here's the thing that's really important. When I look at politicians from back in the day, up to Reagan, up until we got to Reagan,
New Deal era,
you saw politicians that were actually trying to put in some real work, for better or for worse. For better or for worse.
It was the Clintons in the 90s that really pulled the Democratic Party towards the center. I mean, it was Donald Clinton. Yeah, I mean, this is like real quick. Like Reagan was, as big of a buffoon as he was a trendsetter president, right? So whereas Roosevelt set the tone for the New Deal era from the 30s to the 70s, it was Reagan who really set the tone for that where we live in now. Like, we are in the age of Reagan now, currently, right? But I would say that said called the great communicator when he didn't even acknowledge AIDS as it was ravaging gay people. Like, but again, that's Republicans and their hype. It's always hype in misdirection with that.
It's all hype now with everybody, Republicans and Democrats, because what Reagan did and what Lee Atwater did immediately after, as he was championing George Bush, is they turned politics into a show. I mean, one of the best lines that I ever heard Robin Williams say was that Reagan was Disney's last wish. You know,
don't forget Newt Gingrich.
Gingrich, everybody from Reagan on, everybody from Reagan on. Yes, you have people, some politicians today, some elected officials today that want to put in the work, but before they get to that point, they have to be salespeople. You know, they have to be that. They have to look good for the optics. It's all about the optics. I mean, optics weren't that big a deal until Reagan came along. I mean, yes, you had to hide the fact that he was in it. You had to sell your shit. You still had to sell your shit. I'm not going to deny that, but you still had to do something. You still had to put in some sort of work. You still had to produce some results. But now we play like we're going to do that. Yeah. We pretend that we are going to rebuild the infrastructure. And the reason why people blew up the streets last summer was because no more playing. We got work to do. There are things that need to be done. So what we see right now, to Warren Albert's point, again, we do need statespeople. You know, we need people who are really going to make this society worth a damn. You know, we can't keep having elected officials that just want to look good for the camera, and that's one of the, or be able to just sell a talking point here and there. And that's one of the reasons why Trump was able to get as far as he did, because one of the things that, and why Caitlyn Jenner thinks that she can become the next governor, because she's a show person. Schwarzenegger was a showman. And Donald Trump was a show person. I mean, that kind of thing is what we want to vote for, and we've got to stop doing that. And we got to start.
We also have to note. Oh, I'm sorry. I said we also have to note that running for office is incredibly exclusive. So it costs money to run for office. And we have to ask ourselves, well, then the overwhelming majority of politicians, lawmakers, are either lawyers or business. Why? Because they're the ones that can affect. They're the ones with the powerful connections and the wealth connections. So when we ask, why are there no teachers? Why are there no doctors? Why are there no science? It's because they can't afford to run. Warren is saying, I want to be in politics, but to make change, not to. I mean, is you already got. You already have money, and if you don't have money, you have to have bodies. The hard part is with getting bodies is you have to go through these political parties that are going to do everything they can to undermine you if you are genuine. If you are genuine. Like, put it this way, Barack Obama spent $1.2 billion in 2012 on campaign. $1 billion. Romney spent $1.2 billion, and that has gone up. Trump spent more and Biden has gone up. And I remember 2004, Bush was the first person to amass $100 million to run for president. So, I mean, it's incredibly exclusive to run for president, to run for senator, to run for governor, or even locally, state offices, state senator, assemblymen and women, because that costs money. And people with money are the only ones that can take the time off of work or can afford to do it.
Yeah.
It's exclusive. And it's that way by design. We live in a bourgeois republic, and it is set up to keep people like us from running for office. It's like on the Simpsons quote, Abraham Simpson. They have a whole system set up to keep like us from becoming president.
If anybody's ever read The Art of War, it teaches you not to attack enemy's strength. And from years of experience, and as somebody that worked in electoral circles and got around grassroots activism a little bit, and I'm attempting this, independent media work now, I can tell you that if you really, really care about something and you want to make change, you are going to waste a lot of time running for office. If that's your path.
Why I do what I do now.
Yeah, man. You're so much better off starting your own podcast, getting out there and starting a food bank, teaching people how to, do medical care in their own communities or grow a garden. Find a cause and get with the people, man, because you're just going to get used. And I know you think you're smarter than the whole world. And so did I. And I got used and I got fucked just like everybody else. So that's my piece of advice to nobody, because nobody ever listens to me.
And this is one of the things that one of the reasons why people always ask me why I don't run for office is because I can't do shit when I run for office. If you ask me, think about it. If you asked me, do I think, and I have been asked this, do I think I can affect greater change if I was a congressman or something like that? I said no. Because I would have to be a Democrat, and Democrats had every opportunity in the world to do the shit that we're doing right now, and they never took it. So that means I wouldn't have been able to take it under those, and I would have had to have been a member of one of those two parties if I wanted to get elected, and that I really, really hate.
Yeah,
I really hate that. I hate the fact that they've put a stranglehold on our
If you have great passion for a cause, like I said, you get in with people, and you choose the path of trying to get into the government, if you get into electoral politics or get into party politics, right, and you choose that path, your passion is going to be used against you. People are going to have you doing things you don't want to do with the belief you're helping a cause. And in reality, you're helping some twat waffle you don't like in the first place. Get with the people and help the people. That's what you gotta do. Don't get with these political parties, because you're just gonna get used. You're gonna get used. A heart of gold ain't gonna save you. A heart of gold makes it worse, because somebody with a heart of gold walks in the room and it's like a drop of blood in the water with a bunch of sharks. Look at this fucking idiot who thinks he's gonna make a difference. Let's fuck up his life and make ours better and get elected and hook up our buddies.
And what makes it so bad, and why did I lose everything? Okay, there we go. I said, what makes it so bad is the fact that you have to, it goes back to what I was talking about with Reagan and how optics are important to everybody now. And I get annoyed by the fact that you have to play all these silly games, silly political games, in order to and deal with stupid rhetoric in order to get over. And one of the things that happened today, for example, was Ted Cruz talking trash, as he normally does. And he said something on Twitter, and he mentioned this on and I'm going somewhere with this, by the way. And he mentioned something about how Jim Crow laws were bigoted, racist, and disenfranchised millions of people. Those laws were drafted by Democrats and implemented by Democrats to keep Democrats in power. And he was complaining about something called the Corrupt Politicians Act as Jim Crow 2.0. Now, the guy that wishes that we had 100 more Jesse Helms in office is not really to be taken seriously, but that kind of crap is something that they've been playing for the past couple of years. With the whole thing about how the Democrats ran the KKK and started the KKK and all that crap. And then we got to go through this rigmarole where we basically tell the truth and say, hey, look, the Democrats were a different party. And we're not and are not the Democrats of yesteryear. We are not the right wingers today. We are not the people that would found the KKK.
Yeah.
just like the Republicans would not be Marxist today, but segue, ladies and gentlemen, maybe they were when they started. maybe. And that brings us to the conversation that we want to have today. And it is part of it is partly the reason why I wanted to address this is because they kept on playing that game about how the Democrats started the KKK and all that. But the Republicans, they were a third party, and when they started, Abraham Lincoln was a Whig when he when he started off in politics. And and they always talk about how Abe Lincoln was born in a log cabin and everything, which meant that he came from, humble beginnings, shall I say. But when you think about it, humble beginnings means you're going to gravitate towards things that, and when you get involved in politics, you're going to get into something that, accommodates you. And somewhere along the line, the Whigs did not accommodate Abraham Lincoln enough, but this third party did. And it stands to, now here's what's been going on with me. A couple of years ago, I found out that Abraham Lincoln was corresponding regularly with Karl Marx. The term that they was using when I was first reading this was the fact that they were pen pals. And apparently, matter of fact,
that's kind of an exaggeration.
Huh?
That's kind of an exaggeration. I think it was more like, Marx was writing for the New York Tribune, which was a popular paper, and Lincoln was reading those articles, and Marx was sending letters to Lincoln. And I don't know if there was confirmation that they were actually corresponding with one another. But there was, I think the guy's name was Abrams. He was a foreign officer based in Europe, and he's the one who told Karl Marx that that Lincoln was a fan of his.
Well, here's how this went. Because I was going to note that, but here's the one of the important things. In the late 1840s, he wasn't Lincoln was in Congress with Horace Greeley. And they were both Whigs, but Horace Greeley ran that paper, and Karl Marx was living in London at that time. I believe. Do you recall? I believe he was trying to get away from some sort of failed revolution.
What had happened was. He was living in Germany. He was living in France, but because he was a blatant communist or a socialist at the time, he was an agitator, calling for the overthrow of government, support revolutions. So these very these aren't democratic societies. These aren't free societies. So they basically tell him, you have a choice. You can get the hell out of town, or you can go behind bars. So he ends up actually in London under the care of his friend Frederick Ingalls, who owns a factory there, and then he becomes the head of a large union.
And at some point, he started writing. Now, whoever Horace Greeley had working, he was working the Tribune, the Herald Tribune, courtesy of someone. I can't find his name. I think you had said it earlier. But what happened was Greeley had somebody working who was like the editor of the New York Tribune. Herald Tribune, who hired Marx to be their London correspondent. And yes, Lincoln started talking about started reading it and was really getting into it, getting into what he was reading, and he was corresponding apparently with Marx. And my brother is calling me, and I thought I'd turn that phone off. So what he was I'm lost here because I thought I had my notes here, but basically I would read this. I'm gonna read this right now. Marx, upon publishing the Communist Manifesto, this was in the Washington Post, by the way. I think it was like last year. It says, upon publishing the Communist Manifesto with Frederick Engels in 1848, the German philosopher sought refuge in London after a failed uprising in what was then the German Confederation. And blah, blah, blah. Marx was intensely interested in the plight of American slaves. In January 1860, he told Engels that the two biggest things happening in the world were, quote, on the one hand, the movement of the slaves in America started by the death of John Brown, and on the other, movement of the serfs in Russia, unquote.
Yeah.
So he looked at, the Southern slaveholders as bad as the European aristocrats at that time. And Lincoln was a fan of that. So it was interesting. You could tell that he was listening. He was reading Marx a lot. If you paid attention to what he was saying, what he wrote in his first State of the Union after he got elected. And Leah, I want you to pop. I'm not going to get to this yet. I mean, I'm not going to say this word, but because I want to read the whole thing that he has said in this. Hold on a second. I just want to make sure I got this right. He basically said, she put it up. Now, there is no such relation between capital and labor as assumed, nor is there any such thing as a free man being fixed for life in the condition of a hired laborer. Both these assumptions are false, and all inferences from them are groundless. I just read this maybe a couple of days ago. So I read the whole thing that he said in the State of the Union in this regard. He followed this up by saying, and we can take the video down, but labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could never have existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration. Capital has its rights, which are as worthy of protection as any other rights. Nor is it denied that there is, and probably always will be, a relation between labor and capital producing mutual benefits. The error is in assuming that the whole labor of community exists within that relation. A few men own capital, and that few avoid labor themselves, and with their capital, hire or buy another few to labor for them. A large majority belonging to neither class, neither work for others, nor have others working for them. In most of the southern states, remember, the Civil War was happening by the time he had written the State of the Union. A majority of the whole people of all colors are neither slaves nor masters, while in the northern, a large majority are neither hires or hired. Men with their families, wives, sons, daughters, work for themselves on their farm, in their houses and in their shops, taking the whole product to themselves and asking no favors of capital on the one hand, nor of hired laborers or slaves on the other. It is not forgotten that a considerable number of persons mingle their own labor with capital. That is, they labor with their own hands and also buy or hire others to labor for them. But this is only a mix and not a distinct class. No principle stated is disturbed by the existence of this mixed class. And I'm floored. I'm trying to figure out, well, what the hell does this mean? And it wouldn't be too far gone to conclude that there was at least Marx affected him in some way. I guess that's the best way to put it. I mean, if you were to call Abraham Lincoln a Marxist today, it would look weird. It does look weird. That's why I said a whole bunch of heads would explode, because he does not fit that fit today's vision of what a Marxist would be. And I'm talking about people who actually study Marxism and are in fact Marxists. But back then, while Marx was alive, while he was talking to Marx, there might be the beginnings of something there. And Marx's stuff isn't anything new. Another guy who was a part of American history, Thomas Paine, was along the same damn lines.
Yeah,
he might have been called the socialist of his day, but I've talked, but where are you at on this, Christian?
No, I was going to say these people are definitely radicals for their day. So I think we have to always look at it in its proper context, right? So when Abe Lincoln was assassinated, this is 80 years before the Cold War. This is 80 years before the end of World War II. So this fear of Marxism and communism didn't exist yet in the American psyche. Again, this is 8 years before that would exist. So that's one thing that people need to know. So on top of that, the president of the United States is going to talk to labor because that paranoia and fear of labor, organized socialists and anarchists, particularly in the United States, it hasn't manifested. It hasn't manifested yet. On top of that, when war broke out, a lot of French and British elites were initially thinking about siding with the South because they knew that their textile industries were dependent on Southern cotton. So Lincoln, politically, it made sense for him to buddy up. Now, this is where Marx comes in, because Marx infatuated with Lincoln. He knows before Lincoln what the war actually represents and the need to destroy the slave state, right? But Lincoln is looking out into a world as president. He says, well, look, these British elites are going to be my enemy. So politically, it makes sense for me to correspond with these European Union workers, trade unionists, in order to balance that out. So this is before social media. This is before the Red Scare. So it makes sense for a president to meet with labor at that time. And like you said, Abraham Lincoln was born poor, so his perspective is going to be different from the wealthy elites coming out of the Northeast. Now, some work for him. He was able to become president very like Barack Obama. So he's not going to like overturn this system that actually worked for him. But I think after a year of fighting the South, he knew that the only way to win that war was to crush the slave. Right? I mean, it's the European saying it's not over slavery, right? Because the South was fighting to save slavery, to protect. The North was fighting to save the Union. That happened to free the slaves because they knew that freeing the slaves would help them in their cause. And they knew the South, like it needed to, Grant knew and Lincoln knew, especially into the war, that destroying the South was necessary. It was Northern capitalism destroying a Southern slave system. And I actually went online and I found this quote, all people from the streets, and I love it. And they said that the Civil War was the last revolutionary act of the American bourgeoisie.
I like it that I am not the most cynical one in this conversation, because that's kind of rare. But I'll be honest with you. You know, in our discussion, I'll give you credit for the quote, Daryle. But you said it best. I think President Abraham Lincoln was the Bernie Sanders of his time. I think he was very progressive for what our relative to our country's politics, and he was a guy playing the inside game, right? He decided to do that thing that I just went on about not doing in our earlier discussion, right? Yeah, right. And
real quick.
But he was an attorney. He also was. I mean, you mentioned that that he came from poor roots, but he was an accomplished attorney who had been involved in statewide politics for a long time as like Daryle said, as a Whig and others. So he had gotten into bourgeois. He didn't just, he wasn't this poor man's candidate who come up from nowhere.
He wasn't an immigrant. He wasn't a black man.
Well, that was never going to happen in a country where
which is why he drank the Kool-Aid. But that's why he still believes. Which is why I wouldn't call him a Marxist. I would say he's definitely influenced by Marx, because Marxist is a certain term. These are the followers of Marx. These are the people that have been on their beliefs. I say he's someone that was definitely influenced by Marx.
That's the word I wanted to use.
Right. It's the 19th century. Like, there's capital and there's labor, right? There's TV shows, there's no mass literacy, like there's capital and there's labor, and that's power in society. There's all these other factors and interests with today. They didn't exist.
Yeah. At that time, though, it wasn't really recognized as such. I don't think anybody at that time in 1850 something had defined until Marx, these kind of systems and how bourgeoisie and proletariat related to each other. Where Lincoln breaks with Marx in the statement that Daryle read is the acknowledgement that these two entities will always exist. But in recognizing class antagonisms, Marx presents a solution of communism and says, listen, if we break down class structure, we reduce class antagonisms. And that's where Lincoln says, whoa, same place that, quite frankly, FDR did in the New Deal. and these other establishments. So when you say, they kept Northern capitalism alive, I think that's an okay angle of it, because I think that history played out that way, because Lincoln, well, of course, did not get to live out the rest of his terms and did not get to see, we didn't see what his relationship with Marx may have become given a full term and then, a retirement presidency where he could have influenced. Instead, we wound up with who is, everybody can argue who the worst out of all these terrible presidents is. Andrew Johnson's always going to be in that conversation as a man that fucked up our country, something awful, after what could have been maybe a new dawn. Who knows? So
now, this is what probably had pulverized, that killed Lincoln in this regard. Probably even figuratively and literally speaking. Lincoln ultimately was, in fact, a politician. I want to get to something that Warren Albert had said here, where he goes, I think that Lincoln was ahead of most in his time, but he never reconciled his view on slaves, i.e. Black Americans.
He wasn't the most revolutionary.
We were inferior, but he shouldn't be slaves, unless our subjugation would prevent the Union's collapse. And he also suggests that we should read The Half That Has Never Been. It talks about how Northerners and Southerners conspired to maintain slavery since the 1730s. I think the North had the war because if they lost Southern cotton, then their industrialization would collapse.
Yeah,
Lincoln had to deal with that. And it's interesting, too, because I always make the point that the United States wasn't a real country until the 14th Amendment. And that was after Reagan was assassinated. That was in 1865. And the reason, and that's important to note, because there was a sovereignty amongst states that, for all facts and purposes, here's where I'm calling Lincoln a Marxist, and I'm about to defend the Confederacy. This is where the Confederacy might have been on point. Now, let me preface this by saying, yes, I know the Confederacy was a horrid regime. Yes, I know that. But where I'm going with it is that they were still trying to preserve a sovereignty that the United States, that they felt the United States overall was taking away from them. Remember, the word states, another word for states is nations. That's what we were back then. We were the United Nations. And that meant we were all separate states, all separate nations. That was one of the things that when Texas broke off from Mexico, in less to underscore effect, they joined the Confederacy because they thought that the United States was getting ready to take away their independence that they had fought for. They was already still an independent state. If the South had won, the Texas probably would have broke off from the Confederacy. And there would have also been a whole bunch of other border wars and so on. But my point is this. Here's Lincoln saying, the only way that I am going to be able to preserve that industrialization, only way I'll be able to preserve our economic status as a union is if we become a full-on country. And that was one of the things that Robert E. Lee was afraid of. Robert E. Lee, I can't believe I'm talking like this, but Robert E. Lee joined the Confederacy to preserve the sovereignty of Virginia. And he said the main reason why the main thing that he was afraid of was the United States becoming an empire. That's exactly what we became. And that's about as far as I'm going to go, and that's as far as I've ever gone in making the Confederacy's point. Everything else about the Confederacy is effed up, of course. But
there can be propaganda too. Like he could have said a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? We said we were going to war with Iraq over weapons of mass destruction. So just because some Confederate guy said he was concerned with imperialism doesn't mean he gave a shit about imperialism. Yeah. He was appealing to people who were concerned with imperialism so he could get them to be, defenders of white supremacy, because I think that's ultimately what it was. And and a lot of other things related to white supremacy, slavery, and capitalism. Watch it.
And my question is, and I'm going to ask Christian this one because he may have a point on this. Lincoln did create the empire that has become the United States. He did create this empire, this imperialist empire. We didn't look at it as imperialism back then because we were just getting together.
We were only taking for brown people. We were only enslaving brown people and black people, so it didn't count as imperialism then.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we weren't going, and we stopped bringing them from other countries by this point. Yeah, so we were fine. Yeah, so I wanted to ask, considering the conversation that we're having today about Lincoln being a Marxist, can that still play into that line of thought?
What do you like?
United, in the sense that, aside from the fact that the U.S. ultimately became an imperialist empire, he united the states as one nation.
Yeah, I think what he did was he extended the power of the North more or less into the South, at least for a while. Reconstruction was a failure, and a lot of those different states kept a lot of their power. It really isn't until the 1930s that we see an expansion of presidential power. There's a period from 1790 to the 1930s called the legislative epoch, where the power of presidents was really diminished, and this is why when we think of the 19th century, we think of Andrew Jackson and we think of Abraham Lincoln, and everybody else kind of falls to the wayside, because it was a time where presidents, compared to today, they didn't really have a lot of power. In terms of American empire, I think American empire really ramps up about 30 years after the Civil War. So I get what you're saying, right? In preserving the Union, that is now the embryonic stage for the new American empire, because now it has no look but outward. It's not about North versus South anymore. It's about getting to the West Coast. And it was in 1888, around that time, when they got to California, they pushed through Mexico, they took from the Indians, they get to the Pacific Ocean, they realize, oh shit, we're not going to grow anymore. All we had ever done was grow, right? So I was actually talking about this today with my students. The problem is progress or success or doing well for one country can spell disaster for its neighbor. So as the United States is the new on the block, is the rising power, we take from the Indians, we take from Mexico. What is the sick old man on the block? At this point, now it's Spain. Spain has a faded empire. They're 300 years past their prime. They have a 14-year-old queen, and they have possessions like Cuba, the Philippines, and Greece that are just waiting to be taken. And that's what it was. I mean, that's when the American empire really starts to take off, and people are saying, but we're a republic, we can't be an empire. And Teddy Roosevelt is saying, if we want to keep up on the international stage, we have to be an empire. And then, the horrors that came with that. But I'm of the opinion, like,
we didn't even talk about the Panama Canal and Teddy Roosevelt. You know what? We got to talk about this again. I mean, I have to apologize to everybody because we had to talk about,
we're not out of time, are we?
Yeah, we're coming up.
We just got started, man.
Oh man, I mean,
we can continue this next week. We can talk about Lincoln. I mean, it's up to you.
That's the thing. Next week we're gonna have Beth Foster.
Yeah, that's right. Coming back.
Man.
So
I'd like to have her back. She's awesome.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about her work that she's doing, and with the new school that she has just set up, the new virtual schools. I mean, basically something that she's basically going to be teaching things that the state of Tennessee, for example, doesn't really want us to. We're going to be here forever on that one. So we got to talk about that. We are coming back to this issue, but I think one of the things that we are now getting into is, now I'm thinking we got to go beyond just talking about whether or not Abraham Lincoln was a Marxist. I am really interested in discussing how that we get from the idea that Lincoln was a Marxist to the imperialism that we became once the 14th Amendment was passed.
Ooh, okay.
And
the birth of American imperialism.
Now, I watched years ago, a couple of years back, there was a documentary on History Channel called "The Men That Built America," and it was fascinating. Oh boy, was this fascinating. It basically told the story about told the history of American imperialism. The old robber barons talked about Vanderbilt. From Vanderbilt, you got Carnegie, you got the Rockefeller,
all the big names
to Ford. And I'm missing some there, but it was just like they showed how they basically not only fought each other, but their workers as well, especially Carnegie.
Push for war with
what
Mexico.
Carnegie was responsible for. And there's people whose names, like I said, I'm not remembering, but I mean, I'm into history and all that, so this really does in my wheelhouse. And my brother is not gonna. Oh, that's Karen. Yes, I have a friend named Karen, who, by the way, does not like her name being used the way it's being used.
Shout out to Karen. We took it.
She gets furious about that.
No,
the sweetest girl in the world, and
many fine people out there.
Karen,
we love you. We support you. I'm sorry for all the memes.
We love all the Karens.
Right. So, unfortunately, we are out of time, and I wouldn't be so concerned about the time if it wasn't for the fact that I got to get ready for a media hit for that video.
Okay. I got a big announcement before we go. We got to get a big announcement.
Okay. I also got another video in here if Leah can post it.
Go ahead before you go. I'll wait till I
need some money. We do in fact need because we want to keep this show going. We actually want to start that at the beginning, and we don't want to give you something for nothing, really. So everybody, take a look at this beautiful merchandise that One People's Project sells. Yeah. This is the swag. Go to onepeoplesproject.com/merch.
That nice hat,
and you can get all of this stuff. I mean, we got it all, and yet if you saw that this Idavox button here is the rainbow colors, we're going to have it in the red. That's our bumper sticker, the Hate Ass Consequences bumper stickers, and that book right there you get for free with each order.
So nice.
Go to onepeoplesproject.com/merch, and
hey, wait, we gotta go back and tell our podcast audience about the book.
Daryl's educating the people.
Gotta remember,
that's called 40 Ways to Fight. There's 40 Ways to Fight Fascists, and that is done by Spencer Sunshine in conjunction with Pop Mob. It's all the rage. Definitely want a copy of that for yourself. And if you go to the merch link that we have up right now, you can click on to there's a link to the website for 40 Ways to Fight Fascism. And you'll be able to probably even print out your own copy, which is why we're giving it out for free, which just save you the time. But just giving you one copy though. And also we are 501c3. One People's Project is a 501c3, and you can just donate money to us outright at onepeoplesproject.com/donate. You see that in the crawl. It's actually coming underneath us right now. And just give us whatever money you want, and we will be very appreciative. We got a lot of things that are going on right now. As I'm in a bigger office, I'm trying to expand, considering I got all this junk I still need to clean up, so and organize. But that's we're and we want, most importantly, we want to keep this show going. We know you guys love the show. We know you guys want us to just keep doing this. And as you can tell from what's been going on over the past couple of days in the Middle East, things are just going to get hotter. And not just in that regard. There's going to be other things that are coming down the pike. It's summertime. Things might blow up, and we want to be there. We're going to be we're going to be doing things on location in the near future. And we're going to need your help to do that. So please buy some swag or just flat out donate. And all right, so that's it. I got to get ready to get on to Video Soul. Fox News Soul. But before we go, Brian,
Yes, specifically when we talk again about, for those of you that followed New Jersey Revolution Radio before we became Revolutionary Radio and took on all these amazing projects like the Idavox Report, we used to get together in a coffee house once a month, hang out, talk politics, eat some good food, drink some coffee. It's back 2 years, but we didn't forget. We miss it. We love it. And when you talk about supporting Revolution Radio, that means you're going to save the date on your calendar, June 22nd, 7 p.m., the Coffee House in Edison, New Jersey. We're going to be there. Daryl's going to be there. Christian, you're going to be there?
I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Please get vaccinated. It makes life a lot easier. Leah will be there. I know. We're going to work. We're going to get the whole crew there. Please get vaccinated. We plan on being as safe as possible. Most likely it's going to be outdoors and all that. But, we still got time. So if you haven't got your shot yet, as long as your doctor thinks it's cool, if you have some concerns about it, talk to your physician, of course. Don't talk to the internet. Don't talk to Google. Don't go to YouTube. Talk to your doctor. But let's all get ready to get safe and let's get together again, man. And if you want Revolution Radio to come out to your business, to your event, to your little thing that you're doing in the park, hit us up, info@njrevolutionradio.com. Maybe we can find a way to get out and start living life again, man. I'm excited about, hearing about herd immunity in some states and us getting back to something that looks like a new normal, not what it was before. New.
Yeah, new. It is a new normal, but we'll overcome it. But contrary to what Rob Ribber said in the comments, I am not ready to be Soylent Green. I will fight that shit. Sorry, Biden, you're not taking us. So, all right. I hope you guys also had a very good Mother's Day. If you guys are fan or on my Facebook page, my mother had a great Mother's Day because I gave her 2 trees.
You got a tree, man. That was cool.
So I hope you guys had a good Mother's Day. So next week we're going to be talking to Beth Foster. And we're gonna have some fun with Beth Foster. And then after that, we're gonna the next week. I mean, I don't want to have a guest. I want to get back to this. We're gonna have a little bit, and you know what? We will have a guest. Let's see if we can find some. I want to see if anybody wants to talk about this a little bit more. So Christian and Brian, let's bang our heads together and see if there's anybody that wants to jump in on this conversation.
Give us a shout out. Actually, y'all should know how to reach us by now. They should know how to contact. You all know emails. You have the email.
Yeah, email me if you guys want to get in.
I have a friend who's professor of president of politics.
Can we do a call-in, kind of similar call?
I can work out a call-in. Yeah, we can work out a call-in. It's not hard. We could do that.
All right. And Nazi, that does not mean you're going to play your shit because if Luis Marquez, he has, oh boy, on their podcast last, a couple of days ago, a Nazi called up Luis Marquez, who's been on this show, and they just had a field day with them. So come on. I am, remember, the godfather, the grandfather of all of this shit here that everybody talks about. There's people older than me. There's great grandfathers. Don't get me wrong. A lot of great grandfathers. And they're not much older than me. But considering how long I've been in this game, I know how to play it. So if you think you're going to just call up the show, if we have it set up and try to start some shit with me, I welcome the challenge. All right, y'all. We're out of here. Take care, everyone. Y'all got the weather's getting nice and we just gonna get nicer. So see ya next week. Peace.
thrown against the car, handcuffed, and that's what happened last night.
The police kicked in the door, shot him twice in the chest, and he died.
Before you knew it, we had 500 families. We had over 100 volunteers calling us. We were on the phone constantly.
And I can't get it. And I got one police department telling me they don't know who's in charge. I got another police department here. Everybody's got a gun and nobody knows who's in charge. Did anybody figure out who's in charge yet? Is there anybody in charge here? Any police officer in charge? Are you in charge? I can't find anybody in charge. That's the problem.